Alright, hello, and welcome back to my 2D Left 4 Dead in Unity tutorial thing. Today, we are going to be implementing Hordes. So, in Left 4 Dead, every 2 minutes or so, or when you get boomered, a giant group of zombies will appear and try to attack you. And yeah, so we are going to be implementing that today. So if I press, I think it's the debug key H, yeah, that little thing there. I'm just going to not kill these zombies to try and not attract the others, but if I just wait for a moment, you should be able to see that a giant wave of zombies will spawn on the map and will gradually come to me. So yeah, you can see the start of them there, and some of them got picked up, and you'll see that there's more and more and more, and you get the idea. Basically, we're going to be covering how these are spawned, like where we decide to spawn them, when they're spawned, or just over a timer or a debug command at the moment, and how we stop them from being despawned like normal infected in the world are. So that was that. And yeah, just a quick thing before though, I've changed my Patreon. I'll just exit the editor. I know this sounds like a plug, but it's good. Basically, everything is now under $1 a month. So for $1 a month, you get access to the polls voting on the next series. Early access to the project files, which I upload every week when there's a new video. You get access to the finished project and access to a monthly Q&A where you can ask me pretty much anything, and I will try and answer to the best of my ability. Okay, so let's go on to the actual scripts now. First off, we got a couple of changes in the director script. So we've got three new variables, a new list of game objects called the Horde spawn points. These are basically just empty game objects with a sprite renderer attached, so we can work out whether it's visible to a camera or not easily. So you'll see that we're trying keeping the Horde spawn points out of the way, because in Left 4 Dead they'll spawn hordes in a place that's inaccessible to the player, but the infected can still pathfind in and out of it. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Like you'll see in this little bit here, there's no real reason for the player to go here, but an infected horde could spawn there. And yeah, and then these are added into the list in the director for Horde spawn points. Now, I've also got a float for how often the Horde should spawn. So if you were to just stand completely still in Left 4 Dead, every 2 minutes or so, a Horde would be spawned just to try and force you to keep moving. But that's not including but that's a maximum, or is it a minimum? Or whatever. Because if you get a boomered or you start a crescendo event, that timer will reset. And at the same time, we got an int for how many infected should be spawned in a horde. So in this case, we just got 20. So yeah. So here we've got a horde countdown method, which basically just counts down the 120-second timer to 0. And if, it reaches 0, it spawns a horde. And at the same time, but just for demo purposes, we've got a debug command. So if we're running the game in the editor and we press H, it will just force a horde to come for us. Yeah. And basically, we've got these methods called generate horde under force horde. And we've got horde countdown, which just counts down the timer. And if the time is less than 0, we create a horde. And the main thing is this generate horde method and get nearest non-visible spawn. So first off, say this timer reaches 0 and we're spawning a horde. First off, we need to get a location for the horde to be created around. So get nearest non-visible spawn. So what we do is we go through each of the spawn points we have, the horde spawn points, and if they're not visible to a camera, so if they can't be seen by a camera, basically. And we then check if it's less than the current distance. So in this case, we just start with 9999. So what this section of code does, it'll go through all the horde spawn points, check if they're visible to a camera. If they're not, it will get the closest one out of those that are not visible to a camera. And at the same time, just in case for some weird reason you couldn't get any spawn points, it will just return a random one. Otherwise, it will return just the spawn point that it found that was closest and not visible. So next, so if spawn is null, then again we just return, like say you forgot to add them, or whatever. It just prevents an error being created at runtime. Next up, what we do is we go through all the spawn points in all the infected spawns, that are in the level, and we check if they are within 25 meters of the actual infected spawn we wanted, and if their sprite renderer again is not visible. So this is basically making sure that while the infected will spawn in a similar area, we're not all clumping them up around one point, which was a problem I had initially. So because they would get stuck on each other when trying to pathfind, and yeah. So do that for both infected spawns and used infected spawns, because these are not like the normal infected. These ones just don't get despawned and respawned. So yeah. And finally, once we have all our valid spawn points, so we go through int x equals 0 to less than horde size. So we basically just create horde size amount of infected around the spawn point. Then we instantiate the infected prefab at one of the random spawn points, which is just, remember, it's the list of actual infected spawns rather than the horde spawn point, if you understand that, which you should. Then we just created a rotation 0, 0, 0. We also have to make a few changes to the infected behavior to stop it getting despawned like normal infected do, and to make sure they actually pursue a player. So first off, we just get the infected behavior script. We set a new boolean called infected behavior.partofPod to true. So this basically says it's bool declared here. Yep, part of pod. And that is used in the infected monitor. Here, under infected cleanup, basically we just want to make sure that part of horde is false when we're cleaning up infected, just to make sure that we don't despawn a horde because it spawns too far away by some amount, and because we know that they'll actually go to the player and they won't just sit there idly, so they're not actually being wasted. Yeah. Okay, so next up, we set infected alerted to true. So this will make sure that the infected, once it's in the world, will try and pursue the target it's given. We set its spawn to be equal to the spawn that was passed into it, in this case, the infected spawn. And its target will, at the moment, we're just setting it to players 0. At some point when we've got special infected and events and that, we'll be able to add stuff like when a specific player is boomered, then the infected will target that. Or say if we had more than one infected player, like we had a split screen or AI, we could just choose a random player. But yeah. Finally, once we've generated the horde, we reset the timer to 120 seconds or 2 minutes. Aside from that, we've just got one more little change here, which is basically just a little bug fix, because infected, if the player was near them and they kept breaking line of sight and they had to switch between pathfinding and just going in a straight line towards the player, one problem that the infected would have is that they would get stuck, or they would try and move in a straight line towards the point they were at when they first saw the player, no matter if, say, there was a wall in the way or whatnot. So if our current path.count is more than 0, and we are more than 1.5 meters away from our current path, or the current point on the path that we had before we had a line of sight for the target, then we basically just refresh the path and we get a new one, so we don't start walking into walls and shit. And yeah, that was it for today. I think that, well, I'm going to check if there's anything else. Increase the distance. Oh yeah. Infected can now be further away from a point for its iterate. The counter's increased. I can find that. Yep, so now it's slightly further. So if it's 0.5, then if the path is not at the end of the path, we increment the counter. Otherwise, we set moving to false and get another path. Whatever. Yeah, sorry for the short episode today, which seems kind of rushed, but basically, I am sort of at crunch time because my project or prototype that I'm working on to try and get published is, well, I'm hoping to have it done by the end of May, so I can start writing up a proposal and send it off to publishers and then eventually get rejected. So I'm just trying to get that finished, and hopefully I can get all the artwork in for it that I've commissioned. And yeah. So cheers for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Go check out all the shit I've made in the description. Support me on Patreon, etc. And goodbye.